Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats and welcome to the stage Member of Opportunity's Board of Directors, Carol PELINO.
Thank you, thank you. Well, good morning. Welcome to Chicago and welcome to the Opportunity International 2022 Summit. I'm Carol PELINO. I'm honored to be a member of the Board of Directors, and I'm delighted to be your MC for our In Together event. Yay. It's so good to be together. We're so glad you're here. And can you believe it? We're here in person, without masks, able to sit within 3 feet of each other, and maybe even shake a hand if you're comfortable. We wondered if this day would ever come, being able to be together to celebrate. And I know it's customary to thank the staff at the conclusion of an event like this, but I'm going to switch it up because our staff, led by our marketing and communications team and the executive team, planned and pivoted this weekend, not once, not twice, but 3 times. So let's give them a round of applause. You know, I don't know about you, Leanne and I were talking before, when I packed for the weekend, I got a little confused after Zoom calls in my office and in my kitchen. I almost threw the leggings and a cute sweater in, but I stopped myself. And I did get some shoes to replace my fuzzy slippers. But remember, you're here in person. So audience, there is no video off button. You're all here. And you'll be happy to know that no one's going to say you're on mute when you speak up. So speak up, engage, and enjoy finally being together for this weekend celebration. Now, this is a milestone for Opportunity. For 50 years, people just like you have come alongside Opportunity to invest in entrepreneurs and families around the world. Together, we have created innovative solutions for some of the world's biggest challenges. We've stood alongside people living in unimaginable circumstances. We've celebrated the remarkable potential of the men and women we call clients. We've helped kids go to school. We've equipped farmers to increase their yields and feed their communities and their families. We've been part of this important fight against global poverty. This weekend is a chance for us to pause, look back in our rearview mirrors with gratitude and celebration. But more importantly, I think, look forward into our windshield with hope and courage and resolve in our mission of ending extreme poverty. Today, you'll have a chance to hear from past and present Opportunity leaders, the people who have stewarded our ship for many of the last decades. You'll hear from program leaders. These are the people that actually implement the strategy in the field with our clients. And you'll hear other powerful speakers who will give you an insight into Opportunity's work. I encourage you to dive wholeheartedly into these conversations. Be curious and continue to build the relationships with your fellow supporters. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about our day. You were all handed this lovely brochure that has our full program, and so you can look at that for the details. But I want to be sure you take time to visit the exhibit hall, which is 2 rooms over. If you haven't had a chance, please, during a break, go to the exhibit hall. We have a lot to show you there. First of all, we have our op shop, which I love that name, the op shop, where you can buy products made by Opportunity clients. There's also some Opportunity apparel. You can even get some honey made by one of Opportunity's first clients, a beekeeper named Tito. And note, we're traveling again, and you can check out insight trips that are planned for this year and next. There's a QR code to get more information on those. You can also get your book on poverty signed by our own author, Mark Lutz. But the one thing I really want you to go through is the living timeline. I went through it last night, it's amazing. And it shows you step by step, decade by decade, Opportunity's history, and allows you to experience some of the realities our clients face every day. And of course, I'm so excited about this evening. Our 50th anniversary gala at the Museum of Science and Industry, What an iconic Chicago landmark to have our wonderful celebration. And what a celebration it will be. Great food, motivational speakers, and even a band to do a little after-dinner dancing. It's going to be amazing. So let's get started with our day, as we often do, with a moment of reflection and prayer. To kick off our morning, it's my pleasure to introduce John CROSBY, pastor of Menlo Church in California. We first met John when he was the lead pastor, and I know a dear friend of many of yours, at Christ Presbyterian Church in Minnesota. And John has been a long friend and supporter of Opportunity since. John, can you join me on stage?
I have been charged with leaving you with a gift as you leave today. We want to make sure that every one of you receives this gift. It is the gift of hope, hope that will not disappoint. It is a gift, we believe, from God, and it has changed my life. I had the privilege when I was a pastor in Washington, D.C., to sit with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at one time and learn about leadership from him. And I remember him talking about the key between success and failure is whether you are able to gather together what he called force multipliers. Force multipliers are those things that are not in tanks, that are not in guns. They are the people that surround you and the culture that is affected and the way that you leave, not just the battlefield, but you leave the country. Have you multiplied that which God intends to do here? I saw a picture of that, my first vision trip with Opportunity. I think we were just changing the name from IIDI to Opportunity at that point, and it was in Managua, Nicaragua. And we flew into Managua, and on our way up the hills to the projects, we stopped at the city dump. The city dump of Managua is like many developing countries. It is a home for over 5,000 people who live inside or alongside the dump. And we went not into the camp, not into the dump because that was too dangerous, but we went to the fence and looked out in, and I could see into the dump where children would surround the dump trucks that came from the richer parts of the city, and they would literally walk with the dump truck so that they could be there when the dump truck emptied itself, and they would fight over the things that were being dumped out of the truck from the rich. It was a powerful thing to watch. And as I'm doing that, wondering how to make sense of it, a little hand slips into my hand, and it's my daughter, Katie, who was 10 years old at the time. And we had promised to take her out of the country when she was 10, and this was her first trip out of the country. And she's a wildly independent, strong-willed young woman. I have no idea where she gets that. And yet her hand slips into mine as we look into the dump, and she said, "Daddy," I knew we were serious at that point because it was Daddy. "Daddy, God didn't mean for Adam and Eve to live in a dump, did he?" And that has been for me a force multiplier that God has used, that I pray that God will use for you. 26 years later, 3/4 of the people in that dump in Managua are outside of the dump with jobs and casitas, with clinics, and they are living witnesses to the power of God to change destinies. 26 years later, my daughter, Katie, is a senior analyst on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and sees her mission in life to empty dumps around the world. Lord God, I thank you for bringing us together this morning. Those of us who talk to you every day and those of us who still are on a journey of faith somewhere, I thank you for this gathering of people on this cold day in Chicago. I ask you to bring the warmth of hope inside this room in ways that will not make us applaud great leaders like Atul or wonderful stories like we will hear, but I pray that you will put hope in our hearts that will not disappoint us because you are the God who loves all those people as much as you love these people. And I pray that as we go from this building, you will have multiplied our force by surrounding us with allies on the journey to hope. In your great name, we ask for blessing. Amen.
Thank you, John, for those words and those reflections. You know, we wouldn't be here today celebrating Opportunity's robust history in 50 years without an incredible community of support. And whether you've supported Opportunity for decades or are here for the first time today, you are key and a key part of that community, a community that crosses geographies and generations to help people work their way out of poverty. And one of the things that I have found amazing as I've attended these events for the years is how long some of you have been around Opportunity International. So right now, I'd like everyone to indulge me, and when I ask you to stand up in a minute, please do. But first, think about your journey with Opportunity, and when did it begin? What decade? When did you first get involved with Opportunity? When did you attend your first event? When did you go on an insight trip? When did you maybe first financially support? When were you hired by Opportunity? And if you joined the Opportunity community in some way in the 1970s, our first decade, would you please stand? And here he is. Em, did you join Opportunity in the 1970s? Let's give her a round of applause. How about in the 1980s? Who in this group joined Opportunity in the 1980s? Will you please stand? Wow, thank you for your longtime support. You can stay standing as well, because I want to show everyone how our group of supporters has grown. How about if you joined Opportunity in the 90s? Please stand. Well, we've got a lot more people there. That's amazing, thank you. How about the 2000s? Who joined Opportunity in the 2000s? Oh, Atul gets up, okay, great. How about 2010, when you joined Opportunity in the decade of 2010? Wonderful, and how about if you finally joined Opportunity just in the last couple of years? You're the future of Opportunity. Please stand. Woo! Look around this room. Because in the same way that we have grown our supporters, we have also grown our products and services and solutions, and more importantly, our clients and the families we serve. And we couldn't do it without you and your impact. Thank you very much. You may be seated. With the exception of one person, and that's M. Griffin. I saw him just come in. M, could you stand for us? Because I'd like to say a few things about you to the room. M. Griffin, if you don't know M, he helped develop and grow Opportunity from its origins as IIDI. He was on the board of directors for multiple terms across different decades, was a charter member of the Opportunity Network, and was a co-chair of the Board of Governors. M mentored countless staff and board members at Opportunity, which is one of his gifts, to grow and to develop leaders. It would be impossible to tell you every way that M has impacted this organization, but suffice it to say, we're certain we wouldn't have 54 million loans made throughout our history without his support. We are so thankful for M and his wife, Jeannie. Let's have a round of applause for M. Thank you, and thank you, Em, and you may be seated. Now, in addition to each and every one of you, there are groups that power our mission, like our many foundation partners and our corporate partners. We have a few other special groups that I would like to take a moment to recognize, if you'll bear with me. First, if you are part of our Board of Governors, will you please stand? These incredible folks are deeply committed to Opportunities work. They're fantastic ambassadors for us, and we are so grateful for them. Can you please give them a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have a group of people who are giving their time, talent, and treasure with their service to the Board of Directors. As I call your name to my fellow board members, will you please stand? Leanne Pope, Kate Assem, Joel Johnson, Janelle Sund, Greg Nelson, Dale Patterson, Atul Tandon, Ken Watomi. And we have one board member who couldn't be with us today, Fred Sasser. Let's all give these people a really great round of applause. One final group I'd like to recognize, and that's our board alumni. These are people who have helped us get us where we are today. Will our board alumni who are here please stand? Many of these people still continue to offer their wisdom and advice to us, and we really appreciate their support. Thank you. I promise everyone can sit and the exercise part of the program is over. You know, as we think about our 50th anniversary, we need to look back to the beginning and remember and honor the two extraordinary men who had the idea and the vision that formed the foundation of opportunity in our work, the late Al Whitaker and David BUSSAU. For those of you that don't know Al's story, let me take you back to 1971. Al was a businessman in the United States who, despite his success, was hearing a quiet, persistent call from God to do something to help the poor. Now, we know that every good man has a very successful woman on his side, and Ruth Whitaker was no exception. And so when Al was thinking about it, she said, "You've got to do something," and said, I quote, "It's about time you stop making rich people richer and start doing something for the poor." And so Al did. And in 1971, Al officially founded the Institute for International Development, Inc., known as IIDI, that then became Opportunity International. And with a small grant from USAID, IIDI was born. Al had worked with a man in Colombia by the name of Ross Clemenger, and he introduced Al to a modest spice vendor named Carlos Marino. Al made a single loan to Carlos, a loan that transformed his life and created the very first ripple of impact in his business, in his family, in his community. I think it's safe to say at that moment, Al had no idea what kind of a chain reaction he was setting off. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, an Australian entrepreneur named David BUSSAU was exploring similar ideas. His Carlos was a farmer in Indonesia named Ketut, another bold, ambitious man who just lacked the capital to get momentum going in his business. David offered a small loan to Ketut, and before long, he too was able to earn a better living to support his family. These two innovative men believed that there was a different way to fight poverty, one that helped people create sustainable incomes, one of our tenets today, instead of relying on traditional models of aid. Like many of us say, a hand up versus a handout. And today, 50 years later, across geographies and generations, their combined efforts have impacted over 250 million lives. People just like Carlos and Ketut, hardworking people in need of an opportunity, people who can now support their families and break that tough cycle of poverty. We are humbled to work and build on the work of Al and David. And now I am honored to introduce co-founder David BUSSAU to share a message with us now.
So good morning, everyone. What an amazing time this is, celebrating 50 years of Opportunity International. It's fantastic to be here today and just reflect on the origins and the genesis of Opportunity International. Way back in 1977, I was living in Indonesia with my family, and we were approached by a man from IIDI, which is the predecessor to Opportunity in the US, a man called Hilary Diolwis. And IIDI had taken out some contracts with USAID to build bridges and schools and dams in Indonesia. But Hilary was not an engineer and didn't have a construction background. So Hilary approached me, representing IIDI, and asked if I would help him with these projects with USAID. So that was the initial contact that I had with IIDI. And after a little while, IIDI asked me to help them set up a microfinance program in Indonesia, starting in Jakarta. So we formed a connection and an informal partnership then. And then following that, I met with Barry Harper, who was the CEO of IIDI, and Whitaker. And we started to talk about how we could expand the programs in Asia. So around that same time, it was just lovely to be able to catch up with Al Whitaker, the founder of IDI, and to do some forward planning as to how we might be able to expand in the programs. And after about 3 or 4 years, we had done so much work together that we decided that we should formally change both the names of my foundation, which was called Maranatha Trust, and have one common global name. So we did some research and we decided on the name Opportunity International, and we both changed the names of our organisations and started off on a global expansion program. I often think that it's the success stories of individuals that seem to impress people. But what impresses me more is just to see somebody who gets a small loan and is able to feed their family. They may not become a big entrepreneur, and they may not end up a millionaire, but just the joy of seeing a person have that ability to provide for their family, for me is an amazing accomplishment of Opportunity International. It's not always the grand things that are significant in life. It's often the very small things that impress you. So one of the things that really impacted me when I was living in Indonesia was the degree of social injustice and structural injustice that many poor people, and particularly rural landless people, had to endure. And our first loans were really directed at those people who were the victims of that injustice. And the Bible tells us that God hates injustice. And so for me as an entrepreneur, the whole concept of giving people a loan, giving them a hand up rather than a hand out, was the best way forward to enable us to be able to expand our programs and bring lasting relief from poverty.
Wow, what a way to start a day. Did anybody else get goosebumps when he said, and then we started Opportunity International? How honored we are to be part of it. Thanks again for being